त्वयि मे सर्वं मो 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 आत्मनि मे त्वं मो 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 स्मारे स्मारे ॐ मो चित्तं शामे शामे ॐ स्मराणि सोऽहं मो 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 शान्तं चिन्मयमो मामो तटस्थं केवलं मो 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 शान्तं चिन्मयमो मामो So now we are moving to siddhis which are related to the body, related to the adhyatma. So today's sutra again, like the previous sutra, it is talking about hunger, controlling the hunger. So sutra reads, Kantha Kupe Kshutpipasa Nivritih. Kantha Kupe Kshutpipasa Nivritih. By practicing sanyama on the trachea, hunger and thirst are subdued. कंठकूप पे संयम करने से शुद्ध पिपासा, शुद्ध मतलब भूख, पिपासा मतलब प्यास, कंठकूप में संयम करने से भूख और प्यास की निवृत्ति होती है. So again a very technical sutra, little difficult to understand. So if we try to understand, as we saw all these body parts, the Surya Dwar, Chandra Dwar, all these were based on the ancient physiology and anatomy as they understood, maybe 2000 years, 3000 years back. So it is difficult to really say in terms of modern physiology anatomy as to what is the location of Kanthakupa. But then Aranya has translated it. In Aranya's translation, the trachea has been identified as that area. So that's why I read the translation from Aranya. But there it is said in Vyas Bhashya also, if we look at the Vyas Bhashya of Aranya, then they have identified that below the tongue there is a vocal cord, and below the vocal cord there is the throat, and below that is the Kanthakup. Kupa means well. In Hindi, in many Indian languages, Kupa means well. So there is an open area just below that throat, and that has been termed as a Kanthakup. So the idea is that if you do sanyama on focus on that area, then you can overcome the need to eat food and drink water. So thirst and hunger will be subdued or controlled. This is the suggestion which is given. So if we look at Dr. Saab's commentary, Dr. Saab notes, we look by sanyama on the pit of the throat follows the cessation of hunger and thirst. So here it is important to look at the Vyas Bhashya also and some modern commentators. But although they say that the hunger and thirst is controlled, but what is the exact method, why it must be happening, nothing has been suggested, nothing has been given. So a lot of speculation is there. Some kind of inference is also there from the words which are used or from the ideas which are already used here. So based on that, now if we look at this idea of you know eso- esophagus is the which is connected to the food pipe. So one may think that why not they are talking about this food pipe, because that is where the food and water goes. So why some part of alimentary canal has not been explained, but some other area has been explained. So long back we were working on this idea. Last time I talked about this nervous system, autonomic nervous system we talked about. So autonomic nervous system is related to all those activities which are essential for sustenance of life, but over which we don't have conscious control. All those activities are regulated by autonomic nervous system. So when we are tense, our blood pressure shoots up, our blood circulation increases, our breathing rate goes high, and so many other things are also there which are happening, over which we don't have any control. They are all being regulated by the autonomic nervous system. And a part of autonomic nervous system is the nerve ganglia, which are all over the spine, around the spine, at the sides of the spine. And these are associated with these kind of functions. So based on that, perhaps doctor had stated that these nerves are very important. And in this, if we want to understand this sutra, then we will have to understand the role of nervous system very clearly. So we will see why it is important. But before going further, I would like to read doctor's passage on this. So doctor says, apparently, hunger and thirst are felt in the throat. A person overcomes thirst and hunger in this region and conquers his urge. The nerve ganglion of autonomic nervous system is situated in this area. As per the thinking of some yogins, there are certain chakras, centers, that are situated in the area with areas where there are nerve ganglions in the spinal region. These chakras similar to and they control all activities like hunger and thirst. This may be an explanation. The fact is that the yogi, through his concentration, is able to work on these strong instincts. Ultimately, it is the mind over matter. A person may also lose strong instinctive drives when the attention gets diversified towards something even stronger. Depression can make a person lose his appetite. A rejected lover can lose his appetite. A person facing death can lose his appetite. The previous sutras were dealing with past life and unusual phenomena like disappearing, etc. Now, these subsequent sutras are dealing with the physiological aspects. So, this is just an indication of understanding what must be happening. Very intense kind of concentration on certain nervous centers, they can provide this kind of ability where a person is able to overcome this need to eat and drink. Now here we have to understand, it is something which is very, very personal. A practitioner of yoga, when he is able to overcome the need to eat food, it is not for the demonstrative purpose, but it is for the purpose of his own mastery, his own growth, and his own need. So that much we have to understand that, and this has been achieved, this can be achieved by focusing on certain parts of nervous system, certain points in the body, certain chakras are. So when concentration is done on those areas, this kind of result is available. So that is what doctor has observed. And then one may ask that, what is a great deal about this Siddhi? Actually speaking, there is a very great importance to this Siddhi. And even if in small measures, a yoga student can succeed in this, then he has really achieved something very big, something very great. So from the perspective of sadhana, this is very important. As far as the Siddhi is concerned, it is an extraordinary power. And as I told you, more than the demonstrative value, it is the value for the individual who is practicing it. So from that perspective, if we look at it, and as I told you, working on the nervous system, understanding one's body, this is very important. If we look at Gorakshnath's writings, the great yogi, nowadays all over world, whatever is being practiced by the name of yoga, it all originates from Guru Gorakshnath. So in Gorakshatak, there are two shlokas, very, very important shlokas, which are talking about the spine and the five pranas, which are talking about the indriyas and the some important functions of the body. So twice in those shlokas, the shloka ends with Swadehe yena janamti katham siddhyanti yogina. A very important observation by Guru Gorakshnath. स्वदेहे ये न जानमती कथम सिद्ध्यंति योगिना, जो अपने देह के बारे में कुछ नहीं जानता उसको योग की सिद्धि कैसे हो सकती है। तो देह को जानना ये एक इम्पॉर्टेंट भाग है योग का। See, it is very important. We have to understand one thing, that the most important message of the Indian thinking, right from the time of Vedas, all the Vedas, all the Upanishads, all the later writings, even the Ramayana, Mahabharata, even the Yoga Vasishtha, everywhere the essential message of the ancient scripture is know thyself. आत्मज्ञान, अपने आप को जानो, know thyself. So जब हम know thyself की बात करते हैं तो where does it begin? We don't have even awareness of the functioning of the body at a very, very small level. You will understand the importance of this statement from the simple fact that if you are a yoga teacher, ask your students, if you have many students, you just ask them, can anyone tell how many times they breathe in a minute? And I'm sure that most of them, they will not be able to answer this question correctly because they are not even paid attention to their breath, which is essential for life. Now, this is the sad effect of the modern living, that we are totally devoid of any connection with body. We don't know anything about our body because we are depending on doctors. सर्दी हुई तो डॉक्टर के पास दवाई लेंगे, हेडेक हो गया तो डॉक्टर के पास दवाई लेंगे. लेकिन योगीज वेर लिविंग इन फॉरेस्ट. There was no doctor available. Doctor की बात जाने दो, even the food was not available. That explains the need ki why there was a need to control the hunger. It was essential for them to control the hunger because they were living in an area where possibly the food was not available. If we look at Swami Hariharanya's life, when he started doing his sadhana, he withdrew into the caves. And there are beautiful caves, Barabar caves, somewhere in Bihar, Jharkhand, where all these were made by Buddhistic monks many, many years ago. And they are just like a seventh and eighth wonder of the world. If you visit the caves, you will be surprised at that their geometrical shapes, which are very unusual, and God knows what technology was used to construct these caves, and they are hard granite stones. So he withdrew there and he used to do his sadhana there. The nearest village was around 4-5 kilometers away, and the entire area was forest. There was no food available. One guy, one Brahmin, he used to prepare food, and only once in the day, during the daytime, he will come, and just outside the cave there was a flat stone. He will keep that little food at that stone and he will walk away. And when Swamiji will get up, he will eat that food only once in the day. And what kind of food it was, that details is not available. But then, this is the kind of life they are living. They are living in forest. And traditionally, now the yoga has come to classroom, yoga has come to cities, yoga has come to drawing room. But earlier it was not so. When founder wanted to learn yoga, he had to go to Malsar to Guru Madhav Das ji, and he had to stay there for 2 years to learn because there was no teacher available. And he found a teacher that he had to follow his teacher. This is not, this was the state of affairs even as late as 1950s. Hardly people knew about yoga, and if you tell them I'm practicing yoga, they will look at you as if you have come from Mars or Venus. Recently, it has become so popular that now people are even turning away from yoga. So I always say that don't make yoga so popular and so cheap that people may find that it is useless and they may turn away from the yoga. That is the likelihood which is not very far away. Earlier, when we used to talk about yoga, there used to be an awe. If you said, I am practicing yoga, people will look at you with respect. Because this respect was not for you. This respect was for the term yoga. Because yoga had such kind of, such kind of respect in the minds, reverence in the minds of people. So these yogis were practicing in forest areas. So there was need for this kind of hunger control. And perhaps that is why, otherwise Patanjali is not a person who will unnecessarily add even a single syllable or single word in the sutras. He has devoted the entire sutra for telling that Kshutpipasa Nivritih, control of hunger and thirst is necessary. So this is a very, very important message, as far as the sadhana is concerned. So when we talk about yoga, you'll find that self-mastery, we were talking about this swadehena janamti. Now, when we pay attention to the body, then we find that we might be feeling very proud that we are practicing yoga, we are doing this asana, we are doing that asana, we are doing pranayam. But if you don't get a meal on your time, and if 2-3 hours goes without eating, then can you be having that same mentality and mental state of practicing yoga? Will you practice asanas? Will you practice pranayam? This is one thing we always forget. So I was telling you that if you ask these students how many times they breathe in a minute, nobody will be able to tell. How many times your eyes are moving? How many times you are changing the body position? In classroom, you just observe. You take a class and you just keep observing. Be aware. How many times people are changing the position of the body while listening to you? And then if you ask them why you are moving, they say, no, where I am moving. They don't even know that they are moving the body. So this is the kind of body awareness we have. And yogi is interested in ultimate awareness of the body. The most important part of yoga is samprajanya. Samprajanya. Buddha always talked about it. Buddha's disciples always talk about it. Even now, smriti. Sharir ki smriti rakhna. Self-realization, self-knowledge begins with the awareness of the body. How the body is feeling. What is the energy level of the body? How is the posture? How I am sitting? It begins with that. And then one realizes that one is actually a slave of all the physiological needs, like the need to breathe in. Sometimes you want to concentrate, but your breath doesn't allow you to concentrate because it is necessary to breathe. And the moment you breathe, the concentration is lost. So that time one realizes that how we are slaves and how we are dependent on physiological functions. So there are several areas. Eating is one of them. So the connection with the nervous system is that all these physiological needs are fulfilled and the life is saved and we are sustaining our life based on the nerve impulses. The moment something goes wrong in the body, the nerves in the body start sending signals. So suppose if you are holding the breath for some time in pranayam, we had discussed that when we discussed about pranayam, Sutra 49, 50, 51 of chapter 2, when we were discussing, we had talked about three things. Desha, Kala, Sankhya. Desha kala sankhyavi paridashto dirgha sukshma. Breath is to be made subtle and long by considering three things: Desha, Kala, and Sankhya. And while explaining Sankhya, we had discussed this idea of Udghat, Pratham Udghat, Ditya Udghat. So the first Udghat, now what is this Udghat? Udghat is the now impulse which is strongly sent by the nervous system to brain. Why? So that the brain can now breathe. It is sending signals that now enough, body is in danger. You have to breathe now. You have to breathe now. So that is known as nerve signal in the form of Udghat. So the most lowest kind of pranayam is when you are holding the breath for the first Udghat to arise, the first impulse to arise in the nervous system. Now, if you deeply inhale, you hold the breath. For some moments, it will be very comfortable because oxygen is there, pranas are there. But very soon they will be depleted. And there'll be agitation in the nervous system. Nervous system will send signals to the brain. Now you have to breathe. So you have to give in at some moment, otherwise it can be very dangerous. If you don't do it, then automatically body will respond in such a way that you will have to inhale. Now this is happening because of the nervous system. Same way when we are hungry, the nerves are sending signal, nervous system is sending the signal. When we are thirsty, nerves are sending the signal. And the cues are coming from the nervous system. So suppose for some time, if you can do something to the nervous system and you can stop that signal, then you will not feel the impulse. Like some extreme pathological cases are there where the nervous system is not sending the signal. For example, if the nerves are not reaching to the surface of the skin and some pain is there, person will not notice it. And that's how, medical science also uses it. When at the time of surgery and all, they numb the nervous system. The signals are not reaching, so you don't feel the pain. And that's how they are carrying out the surgery. So by way of this conscious control, if we can do something whereby we can control the nerve impulses, and we are doing it. You see, in pranayam, we are doing it. But in case of hunger, we don't pay attention to it. As I told you, if we don't eat anything, the best method of eating would be only when the signals are coming from the nervous system. Eat, eat, eat. That time if we eat, we will always be healthy. But nowadays what we are doing, time ho gaya. It is 1 o'clock, I must have my lunch. It is 4 o'clock, I must have my tea and high tea. It is 8 o'clock, I must have my dinner. So we don't go by the nervous system. We do not go by the body signals, body needs. Now that in the process we are losing awareness of the body. In the process we are becoming insensitive. Our minds have become very dull. Our bodies have become dull. Bodies also have become so dull because of there's a loss of sensitivity completely. So in this state of mind, we cannot really practice yoga, which requires high sensitivity of body, high sensitivity of mind. So again, going back to Gorakshnath, if we pay attention to the body, we will understand how the energies are working, how the nervous system is working. And in pranayam, as we saw, gradually, very gradually, like in Hatha Yoga, they say pranas are like tiger. They are like wild animal. So like we control the wild animals, same way we have to control the pranas. Now all these pranas are reflected even in the food, even in the desire to eat. Without pranas, it is not possible because when we eat the food, it is the 5 pranas which are digesting everything. So all the work is being done by prana. So same way like in pranayam, same way in case of food. Every day, if little bit of practice is done, so that will be the sadhana way of really doing it. So there is a need for this control, and there is a need for various other physiological functions are there, as I told you, that even the sexual impulse, yoga talks about controlling it in the form of brahmacharya. The need for breath, the need regulating the breath. Yoga teaches us to control it by way of pranayam. Same way yoga tells us to control the hunger and thirst. Why? Because ultimately it is creating disturbance in the mind. So perhaps I guess that all the commentaries which we are referring, one indication is clear that ultimately what a yogi is going to achieve by controlling the hunger and thirst. If it doesn't have a practical use, why it is being mentioned here? There has to be some practical use. And that practical use is that when yogi is doing it, then he can really control the hunger and he can prolong his concentration of mind and he can remain without food without getting disturbed. We get disturbed very fast. So that is one important area. And then if we look at the larger processes, now when the now impulse is coming to the brain, what happens exactly? It is converted into a vritti. Suddenly we are sitting and we are watching TV, we are talking to someone, and suddenly we realize, oh, I am thirsty. So when we say I am thirsty, what does it mean? It means that it's a thought. It's a conscious thought. I am thirsty. And then we go for drinking water. First that awareness comes that I am thirsty, and then we go. So vritti, even these nerve impulses are connected to the vrittis we have. And the ultimate aim of yoga is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So if a yogi is practicing holding on to one particular vritti, he will not allow the other vrittis to come. And that is the reason that all these functions of the body, which are autonomic in nature, which are happening on their own, they have been regulated here. And there is a need for regulating them. And this way, yogi can exert some kind of mastery over the body. There are other siddhis also. Later on, we will see that even the pranas are being controlled, and there are extraordinary siddhis occurring because of that. So this could be the reason why there is a need for controlling the hunger and thirst. Now, you see, as we saw that there are various areas which needs to be controlled, and food and water is one of them. Various concepts are there to regulate this function. And in Hatha Yoga, we find that Mita Ahara is the most important concept. So in Hatha Yoga Pradipika, in chapter 1 itself, Mita Ahara has been described in a very great detail. So same way in Gheranda Samhita, Mita Ahara has been explained in great detail. And at some place, in one of the shlokas, it is stated that as ahimsa is the most important, same way Mita Ahara is also most important. Without Mita Ahara, one cannot succeed in yoga. Flabby body which has got 3 doshas, imbalance, such a body is not fit for yoga. Because higher mental concentration requires a very good physical health. That is why health, although it was not the objective of Hatha Yoga, but health was a byproduct of yoga practices. So while describing pranayam in Hatha Yoga Pradipika, you will find they have talked about shatakarma. So if a person has got flabby body, if a person has got vata, pitta, kapha, dosha, imbalance in that has to be corrected, and that can be corrected by the kriyas. So even the therapeutic values of all the shatakarmas, all the kriyas, is to regulate the function of the body in such a way that the doshas are in balance and body becomes healthy. So vata, pitta, kapha, and all have to come in balance. Then only yoga can be, or higher pranayam can be. Pranayam will not succeed if there is an imbalance in the three doshas. This has to be clearly understood. If we are seriously interested in yoga, this has to be clearly understood that if there are three doshas imbalance in the body, then we cannot succeed in pranayam, we cannot succeed in concentration. So from that perspective, we have to look at this sutra to understand its significance. So we are talking about Mita Ahara. Now Mita Ahara, again, since we are talking about sutras, I tell you about one sutra where these concepts are there. We had discussed it, and I had touched upon it when I was covering this sutra, that particular sutra, Sutra 130. Vyadhisthyan sanshaya pramadalasya avirati bhranti darshan alabdha bhumikatva anavasthitattvani. Vyadhi. Vyadhi has been touched in great detail, even in Vyas Bhashya. It has been beautifully covered.
ये भरना है ना पेट्रोल.
So, in Vyas Bhashya, they have
आज
stated.
सुबह को बोलता तो भर देता था, भूल गया.
Vinod ji,
काम था, फोन पे.
Vinod ji, video. Vinod ji.
Yeah,
Audio,
I'm sorry.
audio off कीजिए. Okay. So, talking about Vyadhi, they have talked about all kinds of possible diseases a human being can encounter. The physical disease is also there, the psychological disease is also there. So, Adhi, Vyadhi, both are covered there. So, this Vyadhi idea, how to avoid that? Suppose if a person is already suffering from some problem, then how should he go ahead with the practice of yoga? Because he cannot succeed. This is one of the obstacles. So in Sutra 130, they are talking about Antarayas, Vikshepas, Yogamala. All these are obstacles in the path of yoga. So there they have beautifully talked about this Mittahara. Even if, now this is something very, very promising. No matter if we are suffering from any problem, if we pay attention to two things, then we can overcome that disease and we can become healthy. What are these two things? One is the food, the other is the mental state. So for mental state, it is suggested that do Ishwar Pranidhana all the time. If you are having any problem, do Ishwar Pranidhana so that your mental state is always, you are relaxed, you are confident, you are focused, you are in a positive frame of mind. And about food, they have talked about three things, very important three things. So always we remember three words, very important words. If you remember these three words, it will help us throughout our life. What are those three words? Hita, Mita, Jeerna. Hita, Mita, Jeerna. So he says when Vyas Bhashya, it is part of the Vyas Bhashya. So Vyasa says, eat only that which is suitable to your body, which your body needs, which will not aggravate anything in your body. Only eat that food. So eat what which is good for you, which is beneficial. That is हित. हितकारी खाना खाना चाहिए. जो हमारे हित में है वो खाना खाना चाहिए. That is हित. मित्त. मित्त is always eat in moderation. Eat little. Do not overeat, because the moment you overeat, all the problems, all the diseases begin at the stomach level, at the digestive system. That is Ayurveda. So Mitta, the very easy way to remain healthy is always eat Mittahar. And I have seen so many people, doing it. As I told you, Swami Hariyandaranya, he used to eat only once. We meet one Swamiji, one Guruji at Malsar. He eat only once. And when we look at his energy and when we look at his expressions, when we look at his body, when we look at his eyes, we are a no match, although we are eating all the time. We are no match in energy in terms of the tej or the ojas he has. Although he eats very little and only one time, that too only one time. So these are the people who are examples for us. So the second thing we have to remember is Mitta. And third is very important, Jeerna, which most of us fail to do. What is Jeerna? Whatever you are eaten, first allow that to be digested by the body. And then eat the next meal. If the earlier food which you have eaten has not been digested and you are eating something on that, it is going to be surely creating problems in the body. So very beautiful way of explaining in Vyas Bhashya, Hita, Mita and Jeerna and Ishwar Pranidhan. If one can follow this, then he can deal with any situation, any disease, any problem. So these are again very ancient. Vyas Bhashya, as I told you, it is more than 1700 years old. And they have given this wisdom to us. So this sutra can be seen in the light of the need for control. It is not as a something which is extraordinary, something to be demonstrated or something to, feel great about, but it is the need for a yogi. It has to be seen in that light. So various ways in India they do it. Yogis use this technique of sanyama. But what if the technique is not known? Everybody cannot do sanyam. Everybody is not that kind of yogi who has mastered samprajnata and now he's going into samprajnata and he's at a very high level of development. So what about people like us? There are people like us who are regulating food. So there has to be another way of Kshutpipasa Nivritih. There has to be another way of regulating and controlling the hunger and thirst. So that is the way of tapa. Many householders, they do this vrata, upvasa. So that is one way of doing it. There are Jain Munis, there are yogis, as I've told you, there are Jain Munis who are not eating for 100 days. More than 100 recorded cases are there. All medically checked, medically verified, proven beyond doubt. Many Jain Munis are remaining hungry for 100 days also. They don't eat anything. So this is a mastery. But here the sanyama is not used. Something else is used. It is the willpower which is used. It is the determination. It is the goal. It is the commitment to goal which is used. So it is as a major part of it is that it is a part of discipline, a disciplined life through which one can regulate the food. I remember Mother Sita Devi. Once I used to go every Saturday to Yoga Institute. So once I went there and I went to office, Mother was already sitting on the chair. So as I completed my works, I wanted to pick up something from office. So she called me, Ranjan, come here. And she said, sit. I sat next to her. She said, you are putting on weight. You are eating too much. Don't eat so much. You will fall sick. Your body doesn't require that kind of food. So looking at me, she had warned me that don't eat so much. Our body requires very little to survive and to remain healthy. We are just putting so much which is not needed, and that puts extra load on the digestive system. So this was a very, very important, practical thing. Mother had suggested that, pay attention to your food. Don't eat too much. And yoga, as a yoga student, we have to always pay attention to the food area. That is very important. Now, some very interesting things are there about food. There are more interesting things, but I would like to, read few things from Gorakshnath. I told you that Gorakshnath has said so many things, very practical from the point of view of practice of yoga for mental health, for focus, for concentration. So one of the this is from the Gorak Bani. What it says, थोड़ा बोले थोड़ा खाई तिस घट पवना रहे समाई. थोड़ा बोले थोड़ा खाई तिस घट पवना रहे समाई. गगन मंडल में अनहत बाजे पिंड पड़े तो सतगुरु लाजे. Now what is the meaning of this? थोड़ा बोले थोड़ा खाई. जो आदमी कम बात करता है और जो आदमी कम खाता है, मतलब मित्तहार, जो आदमी मित्तहार करता है. तिस घट पवना रहे समाई. तिस घट मतलब उसके, घट मतलब शरीर, उसके शरीर में प्राण शक्ति भर भर के रहती है. One who talks less, one who eats less will always have plenty of pranas. That is the message of Gorakshnath. Another one, देव कलाते संयम रहवा भूत कला आहार मन पवनाले उन्मन धरिबा ते जोगी तत्सार. देव कलाते संयम रहेबा भूत कला आहार मन पवना ले उन्मत धरबा तेज योगी तत्सा. Sanyam, control, has to be exercised like the divine beings. So we should always control our thoughts. We should always control our mind, as if we are like divine beings. That is how we have to control our thoughts. We have to be in control of the mind. Bhut kala ahar, and eat like a ghost. Shockingly, eat like a ghost. Now, if you know of any ghost, you will know that ghosts don't eat. They don't need food. भूतों को खाने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती है. तो भूत कला आहार, this is the broader meaning, grosser meaning of it. So as if you're not eating, survive without eating, as if. That is the message. मन पवना ले उन्मनी रहबा, प्राण का सहारा लेके, प्राणों को रोक के उन्मन, मतलब नो थॉट शुड बी देयर. उन्मनी इज वृत्ति शून्य अवस्था. उन्मन रहेबा, मन पवना ले उन्मन रहेबा, मीन प्राणों को धर के, प्राणों को पकड़ के. So when we are doing kumbhak or when we are doing shunyak in pranayam, our vrittis are almost not there. The mind stops as it. So that is what he is referring to. मन पवना ले उन्मन रहेबा तेज योगी सत्सार. योग का यही सार है. The essence of yoga is this. That is what he says. And so many beautiful things are there. At one place he says, अति आहार यंद्री बल करे. अति आहार इंद्रिय बल करे, नासे ज्ञान मैथुन चित धरे. व्यापे निंद्रा झंपे काल, व्यापे निंद्रा झंपे काल, ताते हृदय सदा जंजाल. See how beautiful message of Guru Gorakshnath. अति आहार इंद्रिय बल करे, नासे ज्ञान मैथुन चित धरे, व्यापे निंद्रा झंपे काल, ताके हृदय सदा जंजाल. The one who eats a lot, in him there will be excessive energy, और मन जो है वो चंचल हो जाएगा. जब मन चंचल हो जाएगा तो इंद्रियां चंचल हो जाएगी. इंद्रियां चंचल हो जाएगी तो मन डिस्ट्रैक्ट होएगा. वो ऐसे सब काम करेगा जो उसको नहीं करने चाहिए. उसका ज्ञान नष्ट हो जाएगा और मैथुन उसके चित्त में भर जाएगा. Too many sexual thoughts, sensual thoughts will fill his mind. Vyape nindra jhampe kaal. And always he will be dull, energyless, lazy. He will have to sleep more. He will have to rest more. ताके हृदय संध्या. अब ऐसा आदमी जो है जिसका कोई कंट्रोल ही नहीं है, जो ऐसा उल्टा सुल्टा खाता है, जिसका मन कंट्रोल में नहीं है, उसके लाइफ में क्या क्या प्रॉब्लम्स नहीं रहेंगे, सब प्रॉब्लम्स रहेंगे. ताके हृदय सदा जंजाल. तो वो आदमी प्रॉब्लम से छूट नहीं सकता है. तो ये द नीड फॉर कंट्रोलिंग द फूड इम्पल्स इज सो इम्पोर्टेंट. देयर आर मेनी मोर. यू कैन हियर सम साउंड. monkeys near the window. Okay. So at one place, Swami Hariyananda Aranya has said that when we talk about yama, brahmacharya, he said as important as the brahmacharya is, so that much important is the control of the tongue. So he talks about Antaraya. He says that I consider the tongue and sex as equally potent distractions for the human mind. That is what Swami Hariyananda has observed. These are all, things which are stated by them, and it will be worthwhile to really keep them in mind. As I told you, various ways are there. Ultimately, it is the control, because yogi is interested in transcending the ordinary limitations which are there in human beings. So you'll find that he is not attracted to so many things which we as ordinary mortals we get attracted to. Yogi is not interested in all this. So he finds ways of gaining more and more mastery. So in a way, all these siddhis which we are discussing, they are showing some kind of mastery over the elements, mastery over the body, mastery over the functioning of the body, certain parts. Some examples are given. Not all the siddhis are mentioned here. Some siddhis only are mentioned. And as I told you, it is a rich tradition in all the monasteries. Even you'll find you just put a word fasting in the Google, and you will find so many instances where great monks, Christian monks, they are undertaking long time of fasting, like Jain Munis. So, although yoga is not interested in pathological kind of tapa, but yoga is definitely interested in controlling the functioning of the nervous system, controlling the functioning of the body, and developing certain capacity by which the mind can be regulated, the mind can be controlled. Otherwise, we are just like we are at mercy of our body all the time. We are listening to the impulses. We feel like talking, we talk. We feel like eating, we eat, and there's absolutely no thinking, no discrimination, no control at all. And that we pay a very heavy price for that in the form of various ailments which we go through. They all can be really easily avoided if we follow these old texts and the discipline they teach us. So this Kshutpipasa Nivritih. Again, next one is again this kind of siddhi is there. So few siddhis will be of this kind, and then we will move to other complicated siddhis also. Now, if we look at this sutra, there is hardly anything understandable. We say, what does it mean? But when we think about it little deeply, then we can know that the connections are there. There's a need for this kind of control, and that's why these principles have to be thought about. They have to be considered. We have to pay attention to these areas sometimes, and we can learn certain things. That way, the life becomes little better. That is the suggestion. If there are questions.
I don't know whether uh, I feel that one has not to suppress things. I think the more I have that experience of peace, I think things drop. And when I'm just suppressing, then it comes back with force. So, and it has to be very gradual, I think. And to me, food is something which elevates my mood. And what I'm trying to do is practice this moderation idea rather than abstinence or indulgence. So that middle path, which even the institute suggests, I think that is something very difficult, and that is what is there for people like us. So there are many things like personal experience, like when I joined the institute, I was eating non-vegetarian, that stopped from day one. And gradually I feel the outside food has reduced quite a lot. Many other things which I was earlier having, like cold drinks and soft drinks, have dropped. Smoking and drinking was never done. So I mean to say it has to be very gradual, and the more I'm at peace, I think the more I don't need uh, the there's better control on the food.
See, moderation is a good idea, ideal situation. But then the things which we are discussing here, the separation is not what is asked for. We are talking about Mita Ahara. So the stomach is full, and one extra chapati, if we can avoid, that is what is being talked about. So suppose if one has eaten something and you go out and somebody is offering you something very tasty, then we just give in to the desire. We just give in to the taste. And then we have it. And we pay price for that. So if we can control that, that will not fall under the category of suppression. Or, for example, you talked about smoking. If a person has got habit of chain smoking and he wants to control it, so he's able to suppress that desire for smoking. That suppression is not going to cause him any problem in the body.
Yeah, that is true. That is
It is
true.
going to help him to become strong. So we are talking about that kind of control where unnecessary we are not indulging in certain things. And ultimately, when we are talking about control of the mind, why yogi is interested in control? Because the kind of mental peace you talked about, that is what he attains. You have to ask somebody who has given up some habit, how great he feels to be able to appreciate that mental state. It's a experience of Aishwarya. When you are able to give up something which is weakening you, and as a result, you feel strong, you feel confident, you feel joyful. That is the Aishwarya. We are talking about that. We are not talking about unnecessary separation for the sake of separation. What is needed is needed. We need food for survival and we have to eat food. That is necessary. But are we eating more than necessary? That is the point. So moderation would means mitahara. We talked about it. Mitahara itself means moderation in food. In Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 6, what Krishna says? Yuktahara viharasya. This yoga is not for the people who eat too much. It is also not for the people who don't know to eat anything. Both the extremes are to be avoided. There is another aspect we will touch someday. Yoga always avoids two extremes because this ati is not to be done. No extremes are to be followed. One has to follow the middle path. Middle path is mittahara only. Yuktahara viharasya, wohi mittahara. If you look at that shloka, it is there in the Sutra, shloka 16 and 17 of Bhagavad Gita, Atma Sanyamana Yoga. The chapter is called Atma Sanyamana Yoga. अपने आप को संयम में रख के आत्मा को संयम में रख के जो योग प्राप्त किया जाता है उसके बारे में भगवद गीता बात कर रही है. तो वहां पे भगवान कृष्ण ने कहा है कि ज्यादा खाने वाले के लिए योग नहीं है, कम खाने वाले के लिए, ज्यादा सोने वाले के लिए योग नहीं है, ज्यादा कम सोने वाले के लिए भी योग नहीं है. जो युक्त आहार करता है, युक्त विहार करता है, उसके लिए ये योग है. योग इज फॉर दोज पीपल हु आर मेंटेनिंग दैट बैलेंस. सो देयर इज नो dispute about that. If something is helping, well, make use of it. As Dr. Jaydev always to say, there are certain conditions where, although it is not recommended that you should have liquor or it is not recommended that you should have tea, but there are certain body conditions when it can prove as a medicine. Well, go and have it. It will help. If you can overcome certain things, certain wrong mental states, if it is helping, why not? There's no fixed rule and there's no fixed rigid kind of rule that this should be done, this should not be done. We have to listen to our body, we have to listen to our mind, we have to see our well-being, and we have to strike a balance. That is the idea.
Namaste, sir. I have some questions.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste. Yes.
Sir, when you said about Hita, Mita and Jeerna, you mentioned that this is in Vyasa Bhashyam, right?
Yeah.
And is this commentary in the Vyasa Bhashyam on the Antarayas?
Yeah, 130.
Okay. 130.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is in Vyasa Bhashyam.
Vyasa Bhashyam.
Okay. And I also have another question.
Yeah.
1 minute. I had written here. Yeah, so sir, you mentioned something about that there is a difference between Sanyama and willpower.
Yeah.
You gave some example that when the yogis, when they fast, I think the Jain Munis, those who fast, they're able to achieve this state of fasting through their willpower.
Yeah.
And not by Sanyama. Could you explain the difference?
See, here in Yoga Sutras, the Sanyama idea is being discussed here. And it is related to the Nirodha Samadhi, Nirodha Parinama.
Mm-hmm.
So Sanyam has been mastered and now person is moving towards the Asampragnat. He has almost attained the mastery in Sampragnat. So whichever direction he wants to know, he can know. And how he can know, he will apply the technique of Sanyama. So this is the highest technique of concentration which yogi has mastered by way of going through the Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda and Asmita. Now there are saints and sages who have not practiced any of the yoga angas. They are not
Yes.
doing asanas, they are not doing pranayams, they are not doing anything by way of yoga techniques. But still they are able to control their hunger for months together. So how they are doing it?
Right.
So every day they are practicing, every day they are using their willpower, and gradually they are gaining mastery over the body.
Mm-hmm.
That is another way of, there are ordinary people cannot fast. There are, people who can go without food
Right.
because they have practiced it.
Right.
So here the Sanyama technique is not used.
Right.
But the other technique is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to share my observation pertaining when you mention about the suppression, not the suppression, the regulation. So the regulation of food comes through the regulation of prana, right? Only when the prana is conserved, then we are able to regulate our hunger and thirst, because
everything
our metabolic rate is very high because of stress. And that's why we eat a lot, because there is drainage of prana, right?
Yeah. Everything in yoga is related to prana.
Yes, so over there, we have to conserve our prana, and then only the regulation of food could come.
So you can see it this way that, when you are eating less, there's a very little need for the energy in the body.
Conservation of
Because
energy.
the food will be digested easily, there will be no extra load on the system. So if
Right.
we eat very heavy meal, then more pranas are required to gain some pranas. So first you have to lose a lot of pranas to gain back more pranas,
Right.
which can be a useless process, or avoidable process.
Correct. And overthinking also could lead to.
Overthinking also, yes.
Right.
Because when the food is there, lot of energy is there, thinking requires prana. When you access prana, where it will go? It will disturb the mind, or it will
Right.
create agitation in the body.
Mm-hmm.
When you have excess prana, it will either disturb the mind or it will disturb the body.
When you have excess prana.
Yeah, more than needed. Chale vate
Okay.
chalam chittam nischale nischalam bhavet.
So we could say when the prana is not regulated.
Yeah.
Because when we say excess prana, it means unregulated prana.
Whenever we are doing excessive eating, we are generating more pranas and we are spending more pranas.
Right. Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah.
I
There
was
is
looking
something.
at this. I was looking at this Vyadhi. This Hita Jeerna is, I think I have connected it to here, but where did I find? But then Vyadhi Dhatu Rasa Karana Vaishamya, Vyasa has mentioned at some place, and then that has been interpreted by the commentator. So
Okay.
I'll see the source where it is. I'll share with you.
Yeah, it's like the tika on the.
But then just about the Vyadi part, you just read the commentary of Aranya and Vyas Bhashya. Both.
Yes, I have it with me.
Yeah, both.
I'll check it for Sutra 130, right, sir?
130. And then exactly the word where the use of word Hitta Mitta Jeerna is there, I'll find and I'll share with you.
Yes, sir. Because it's really very helpful and very contemplative. And I remember, just want to share with you and all of you, because I remember you or Hansaji or someone sharing that how founder and Sita Devi, they used to cook once in the morning something very simple for the whole day,
Yeah.
because they had to write many books and sit and think. So there was no time about thinking about food. So that conversation, I remember it was you or Hansaji, but it was very enlightening that we spent so many hours in just thinking about food.
But
And
just it is something to be experienced. Suppose if you are free from one meal, how much time it means and how much peace of mind.
a lot of peace of mind. Yes, yes. It's been a long time that I have not eaten outside. I just eat home food like rice, dal, one vegetable, salad. And now when I eat out, there is, a lot of issues or indigestion sometimes. So the body becomes more sensitive. I think when the body is sensitive, it's intelligent. And that's when moderation, regulation comes, because we become resistant to the outside food, means we eat and we don't feel anything.
Yeah.
And we become a bag of toxicity then.
Yes.
And so one more question. You mentioned about Swadeha na janati.
Swadehi Yanjan.
Yeah. Sorry to ask, but is there like, which because this Gorakhbani is so huge, I was trying to find which number is this.
No, this is not from Gorakhbani. This is from
Okay.
Gorakh Shatak.
Okay,
What I
Gorakshatak.
read was from Gorakhbani.
Yeah,
What I read in
Gorakhbani.
Hindi, what I read in Hindi, that was from Gorakhbani.
Okay, so this Gorakshatak, I don't have it.
Uh,
Which number is it?
I think it must be 14 or 15.
Okay,
First 20 shlokas only it is there.
that is a small one. Okay.
No, I have it. I'll share with you. I don't remember exactly. It's there.
Yes, sir. Please share. Thank you so much. Thank you. And
Anybody
very
else?
enlightening class. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions?
Yes, I had one question.
Yes.
About the same thing that you were saying, these three things to control the food intake. The third part, right? Whatever you have eaten, allow that to be digested and then eat the next meal. So I need to clarify. Digested here means that the food has come out, has been eliminated, or just digested and is ready to come out. Sorry, it's a technical question.
It's highly technical question and it is difficult to answer also. Because they say
Yeah,
that,
no, just so that I can put it into practice also. That is
so,
my idea.
so when do we consider the food has been digested?
Yes,
It
exactly.
is not necessary that the elimination is the completion of the digestion. The digestion can occur earlier also. So roughly 4 to 5 hours are needed. If you had light meal, then 4 or 5 hours are needed for the body to digest it. It goes into small intestine and then it is digested. So roughly, how do we know? One of the area which we can look for, how do we know that the food has been digested? It is only when the earlier food has been digested, the nervous system will send a signal to you, eat, eat, eat. So listen to the body. I am really hungry. I want to eat. That time we should eat. That is the ideal situation, although we fail most of the time.
Yes, that's true. Thank you, sir.
एक बहुत सीरियस सब बातें हो गई हैं।
हाँ यार, कुछ लाइट करो। बहुत हैवी हो गया।
तो इरशाद एक शायरी है,
हाँ
रोज रोज वजन क्या चेक करना,
हाँ
रोज रोज वजन क्या चेक करना, एक दिन तो है सबको मरना। कुछ बोलो यार,
वाह 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 वाह।
कुछ शायर का कुछ हौसला बढ़ाना चाहिए।
बराबर है, सब लोग सुनो, बोलो।
रोज रोज वजन क्या चेक करना, एक दिन तो है सबको मरना, 4 दिन की जिंदगी है, 4 दिन की जिंदगी है, खा लो जी भर के,
हाँ
अगले जन्म तो फिर 3 किलो से ही शुरू करना।
वाह वाह
वाह वाह वाह, वेरी गुड वेरी गुड.
3 किलो से शुरू करके 60-70 तक गए तो ठीक है. 3 किलो से शुरू करके 108, 110, 120 तक गए तो गड़बड़ है. फिर वो जीने में भी मजा नहीं है. ये तो ठीक है, लेकिन see, sometimes we give this life is too short, so why worry? But then that short life also has to, yogis will say that that short life also has to be lived very powerfully.
Yeah, true.
It has to be lived with lot of confidence and joyfully.
Yeah.
So if you are doing something which is creating physical problems, mental problems, why do it?
Yeah,
It's
true.
very common sense approach. ठीक है, leave it here. Namaste everyone. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste, namaste.